I've had probably over 500 interns. We stopped counting 15 years ago. And these interns are domestic, international, high school, grad through grad school, all different kinds of areas from medical students to accounting students. It didn't make a difference. And I can share with you the reason we've had so many and we continue to do this is because really everyone wins. And that's one of the reasons mentoring internships came, because we believe we can do more and this is your opportunity to learn more. So let's begin. So why should you care? If you're having to sell this to management or HR or somebody who's not right now highly supportive of it, just some simple numbers. The youth unemployment was at 16%. It's still over double digits. It's about twice the normal rate of employment in this country. And we believe very strongly that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Studies are being done by Associated Press and McKinsey, as you can see, that show that most students, when they're finishing college, have no idea what to do. And when they're looking for jobs, they can't find jobs commensurate with the degree they have. And the single biggest reason we get for why this happens is because they don't have the experience necessary, the wisdom to be able to make the kind of decisions people are looking for. And that's because, as we believe, the case is they're going to then have to. The reason they're not getting these positions is because they don't have the experience people are looking for, and that's because they haven't had a chance to get it through internships. So internships raise the entire level of the quality of the people who are entering your workforce and could be potential workers, and that's again why everyone benefits. We're not just looking at unemployment as our first number focused on, but underemployment. That 50% of the people who've gone through a school, gotten a decent grade, graduated high school, college, whatever the case may be, and then are working in McDonald's doing janitorial services, not even good high level countering work. We're working with customers, but just doing less important jobs, as that's just an example. This is what we're talking about underemployment. We're trying to get people to work at the highest level of their capacity. And the only way we can do it is by caring. And so I thank you all for being here today doing that, because that's what it's about. I make the point that your company also benefits because most of the people think, well, if I do an internship program, the only people who benefit from it are the students. It's not really true. Some of the smartest companies that I work with understand that really building a solid year-round program allows you to perfect your recruitment. You can identify new and talented people and see if they fit your culture. I have a wealth management that's gone upscale in terms of the dollar amount of its clients, so they're much more prestigious clients and more valuable right now, and serving them. And the CEO told me the story many years ago when we first started discussing this issue. He said, I get every year, somewhere around February, March, we get hundreds of resumes from talented, generally graduate students, not just college students, but graduate students as well for these positions. We narrow it down to 10. We interview the 10. Our goal is to take about 5. And the reason we do it isn't so much the work we have, it's to really work with the people. And at the end, hopefully make one an offer to work with us. And I've worked with this company many years, and I know each year where that new employee came from. So it's a great way to answer the question. Not do they have the skills, but do they have the fit with your culture? Second, depending on what you're trying to do, what you're going to discover that's very important is young people, we call them often now millennials, but throughout the generations, they'll be young people, have a fresh perspective. They know how to use social media differently. They see problems differently. They're faster. Their agility is better in some ways. And their perspectives, if you open yourself to listen to it, will make a significant difference in making the decisions. I do lots of research. As some of you know, I'm a lawyer and a psychologist. I've worked on Capitol Hill. I've run a public company. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I love getting the perspective of my interns on what we're doing, and I treat them with the dignity they have of sharing as much as they can because I will value it, and those perspectives help us move forward all the time. If you have a special project as a mentor, as a person in a company, and you don't have the wherewithal to do it, bringing in interns very often is a way to do it. That's actually how I started. I launched a program when I first job out of graduate school, full-time job, was running on a research and development department in healthcare. came up with an idea for a study. New York State actually funded it. We needed to have interviews done, and I needed talented people. So we reached out to people who were in medical because it was a medical company, medical, public health people, people in communications, people who cared about the particular population and had them trained to be able to do the interviews. And this way they could work on a short term and learn it. And so many of them not only benefited in their own careers, but changed their careers. They discovered, gee, I really don't want to be an emergency room doctor. I hate the sight of blood, but I really like different parts of medicine. So you get to do things you couldn't do. They get to learn. It's a win-win situation. You increase productivity because some of these people can do really great stuff and their minimum wage, whatever that is today, whether it's the state one or what you set up at $10, $12 per hour. If they love what you do, they become brand ambassadors. We get a certain proportion now of our interns from referrals from previous people who've done it. There are brand ambassadors. We get many jobs from our companies at the Presentation Excellence Group, from the interns who can explain very often in their company the quality that we put behind everything we do and why that's so much better than something. And for those of you who are into being good corporate citizens and giving back, what better way to give to your community than helping the next generation find better jobs? And obviously, the students do it. And when people think of interns, they don't really think about how much of an impact it's had. If this is a list we put together, about 250 at one point of celebrities, CEOs, leaders in the world who, if you search their bios or we interviewed some, you find out that what they've actually done is gone through an internship and felt it made a difference in their life. And so you can see you can really make a difference in their life by offering internships to people and giving them that opportunity at ages. And I'm going to just make a side comment because yesterday we had a comment with a new group of potential interns that we interviewed that when we first started, we focused mostly on college and grad students. And over the years, we moved to high school students because in New York, they're aggressive and they want to learn and they want to grow. And we think right now that's probably the single best area you can make a big difference because they're not learning in school what jobs are all about. We believe many, many people, too many, are career disadvantaged. Which we mean by that is they don't come from families where their parents or relatives or the friends of their parents and relatives are in the professions they might want to go into, engineering, architecture, medicine, working in an office as a lawyer, whatever the case may be. They don't really have that experience, and therefore they're career disadvantaged, and they're just going after something that's easy and simple, and they've heard, and they don't know they could have been qualified for more things. And the earlier you give them the exposure, these career disadvantaged people will no longer be career disadvantaged, and they will therefore grow and make a difference in the world, and you can say you were part of that. Our biggest problem, which is why Mentor Our Kids, which was the advocacy group that got us started with mentoring internships started, is because we realized we can do a better job. Here was a study done by InternBridge, which focuses on college students graduating, and discovered that it's not about the money, which unfortunately is what people think. 68% of people said they'd even give up getting pay or take less than they get if they could get an improvement in the quality of the internship. And that's the reason mentoring internships came around. We realized most people have no roadmap. They have no manual. They don't have a set of strong guidelines about how to run a really effective internship program. And I don't just mean for the summer, and that's why we do this before the summer to encourage people, but year round. We have interns year round. There is no season. They can come in at any time. School seasons have changed that way, etc. The beauty of it is you can have a high return on your investment if you're really offering a quality program which increases and attracts students who can do more for your company and help your staff do a better job. So having said that, let's try to go into the details of a program. Let's define some terms. As many of you know, I'm a teacher. I teach for CUNY here in New York, and I also teach in the summer for the University of Shanghai. And so I like to just play an even field, make sure we're all using the same terms. So what's mentoring? Who are the players? How do they benefit? What is a mentoring program? How does it actually operate and work? And what are the next steps encouraging you to take them to really make a difference? So mentoring, as most of us have a sense, it's a method of teaching and learning in which an experienced individual, usually it's an employee that already exists, it doesn't have to be a senior one, it can be a middle manager, teaches someone who's younger and doesn't know it and trains them by coaching them, by guiding them in what makes better sense to do and not, and letting them learn what are their strengths and if they have weaknesses, whether they should be overcome or compensated for or how to handle them. And the second, and that's what the mentor does, and the mentee is the person with less knowledge in the area, less skills, less experience, usually a student who's willing to learn. So each of them, in a sense, is part of an accountability dyad. The mentor has to keep the process on track, so it has a plan when you start. What do I want to get done for the company? What do I want to get done for me? What do I want to get done for the mentee so that they learn certain things when they finish this project? And the mentee is committed to learning, showing up on time, doing the projects, and asking questions. You learn so much more. Every study on learning shows by experience than compared to sitting down and reading a book or watching a movie or something like that. It's the experience that makes the difference, and so it's a commitment on both levels. And that's what you really want to look for in part in your recruitment process. Someone who's committed. What are some of the issues that you might cover in mentoring? There are many different ones, but these are the 5 general areas we think cover it. One is skills. What are the skills they want to learn they can use no matter where they are? How to write better, how to use new software, how to make presentations. How does the business environment really work? Subject matter depends on what they're doing. So if they're in finance and they want to learn accounting, they might do that, or engineering or law. In other words, the department you're in will help them learn that specific area. And what's wonderful for young people is they may start off doing one and discover that's not what they want to do. They want to do something else. If they do like it and they want to work on it, they get to polish their skills. They get to see where it is. So I was always interested in law. But after a while, I realized I was interested in public policy. So I didn't want to sit and do corporate law or bankruptcy law or immigration law. I really wanted to write legislation. So I needed to learn what that is. And that helped shape what I eventually did in law school. You want to help them acquire really great work habits, because the reality is until you're in a situation where everyone depends on the members of the team, you really can't do that. And so you teach things like time management, coming on time, being there, using your time effectively, planning, interpersonal relations, how to delegate work to other people. This is a very important part of it. The organizational issues, what's the difference between authority, power, culture? How does strategy fit in? How are people held accountable? What's the corporate brand value? Do people really understand it? It's amazing how many people in companies don't really understand what their mission is, what their strategy is. And as a result, what happens is companies break up into silos and become counterproductive. And finally, it's a career path for many of them, learning where they can go, learning that if you want to get ahead, you need to speak up. You need to take initiative. You need to not just know your one discipline, accounting, but you need to be able to communicate it well and get onto the professional development issues of taking it to the next level, doing projections, not just doing the past finances. So these are 5 subject areas we work with most of our companies and people in terms of areas for mentoring. So with that, let's focus on the 4 parties that we think are important in understanding how this really works. The first is what we call the IPCs, the Interim Program Coordinator. Could be a person in an HR department, could be in a department of their own. It's somebody, it could be a CEO in a small company who's willing to take responsibility for the program. In my first company that I worked in and where I pioneered my program, we had 9 clinics we started. We were down to 5 in the first year. We served tens of thousands of people needing healthcare services. And I needed to do this research, and so I went to the HR department and said, I'd love to get some people who could help me. We could maybe do this with interns who were looking to learn more about how healthcare is provided. And the person said, I'm overwhelmed, but if you want to do it, you let me know what you need and you can do it. And so I became the de facto interim program coordinator for the company, eventually teaching the departments, teaching the different clinics how they could run it. And now look where I am, helping you. Mentors, those are the staff who supervise interns. It doesn't have to be senior people. It can be junior people. It can be anybody who's got some experience and willing to put someone under their arms and be able to help them. What's important to understand is we discovered when we first launched this whole area, the first flock of people who came to us were parents who said, I wish there was a program for my son or daughter. Could you help them get internships? And what was interesting, I would turn it around and say, we're really not a recruitment company or a placement company. We help companies build better programs. How many interns does your company take? Well, we have 300 people, and every summer we take 3 interns. Way underutilization, and they got it. They make a difference in their company, and their kids would also have positions in other companies. Clearly, it's the students. But the interesting fourth group is the school career advisors. They're desperate to find really great placements. And the more great placements we find them, the easier it's going to be for them to place students and to do the recruiting for us on campuses. So it's a win-win situation. We won't spend a lot of time on that group right now, but they're the actual fringe benefit because they help us in everything we're doing, and they benefit from doing this. So to the extent that, and I noticed about 60%, 50, 60% of you are HR people or in training development or CEOs of smaller companies and probably wearing that hat. So what is it you need to do? Well, the first step is you need to identify the needs of the departments who have current projects they'd love to get done, and maybe they need future staff, and this is an opportunity for them to get a win-win out of that. You then have to decide what kind of students are appropriate for their needs and figure out how to recruit them. And then what you need to do is find the people within those departments to recruit as staff. Because the ultimate thing that you're going to have to do, it's probably the most difficult one, and yet if it's done properly, it becomes real easy, is to match mentors and the students. I pioneered this program with it's called the Super Mentoring Program. We've done for gigantic Fortune 500 companies, a gigantic nonprofit, to show how this could be done, but doing it internally, not with students, but using senior people and middle management people to help young recruits so that they would stay in the company longer and find more valuable career paths. And the HR person who was in charge of this program, her job was to do the matching. And in the 7 years that we ran the many cycles each time, we not once really had a bad match. One time there was one, but it wasn't really our fault. It was the last minute someone came in and we took it, and we didn't have to have a chance to do it the right way in terms of screening. It's amazing that we were able to have that success. So that's the key thing. And again, an HR person has any of those skills. What you want to do as an IPC is develop the global program. What are the terms and conditions for everybody? How long should internships last? How many hours per week? So, for example, our internships require 15 to 20 hours a week during the fall and spring semesters and 32 to 40 during the summer. What's your pay? What's your rate? How do you determine what you're going to do? What are the acceptable roles and what are not? You know, Hearst ran into a problem because many people were doing very low-level administrative work and clerical tasks outside and running laundry and getting coffee. That's probably not a learning experience for a young person who's trying to learn, and that's why they were sued for not paying these people. If you give people meaningful jobs and you pay them if it's inappropriate because they're filling in a staff function, you don't have those problems. You can implement the program locally, and that means within each department, someone's going to set the goals for the mentor and the students. You monitor the progress, and what you do is you evaluate the effectiveness of the program for all the parties. I'm an evaluator. I ran the first evaluation in this country for the needs of handicapped children for Head Start services. And that actually generated $50 million for running pilot programs, and today the handicapped children are mainstreamed into Head Start services whenever it's humanly possible. And I've done evaluations since then for all kinds of people. And it is one of the critical parts, because if you evaluate it, you find out what works, what doesn't work, what to replicate, what to fix, what to drop, what to change. What does the mentor do? For many of you, you will be a mentor, whether you're an HR person bringing someone into your own department, or you're a project manager, or you're a project director, or whatever your role is. What are you doing as a mentor? Well, ultimately, you're serving as an expert. You know your area better than the other person. You're going to coach. You're going to help the person see the world that they need to see and figure out where it goes, and be a counselor. No, I'm not telling you you're going to be a therapist. That's not your role. But you'll counsel them and helping them think through what they want. Most importantly, very often finding outside resources, including in the schools, that can help them. You might tutor them. You might guide them. It all depends on the role and the time that you want to do it. What a key definition for those IPCs who are saying, who do I find as a mentor? These have to be people who are willing, able, and available to share information. There are people, especially parents, who are used to giving to young people, who are perfect for this. And if given the chance to fill this role, they'll do it. Mentors don't necessarily ever get paid anything except for the fact that they've made a big difference in someone's life, and what's bigger than that. You develop a strategy for teaching and learning, and the IPC can help, but each person's going to do it differently. So when I have people in clinics observing what kind of care they're getting, observing the education process and what feedback it has, it's a different thing completely than sitting in the accounting department and learning to understand how a balance sheet really works. You engage the interns in projects that help your department. That's where the ROI comes from, because your department actually at the end of the time says, we've accomplished this and we've done it. And what you want to do is optimize it by giving them both a learning experience and a doing. The mentors benefit, and that's the beautiful part about this. Sometimes they, well, why should they do it? Because there's a personal side and there's the business side. On a personal side, most of us, especially parents, like being teachers. They want to coach people. And you don't have to be a parent to do that. People who are coaching teams who understand helping young people. But what's important is it helps them themselves. For example, if you don't have a department where you're delegating work to other people and you're not a great supervisor, taking an intern's a chance to learn those skills and capabilities. When I first took mine, position as an IPC, essentially in that very first job, at first I had nobody report to me. Later I had one person report to me. At some points we had 25 interns reporting to me and my assistant, and we were able to build this vibrant department. We actually became a national force in this healthcare movement that we were working on. And it all came from the fact that I was building my skills as a delegator, as an executive, and that's part of it. In fact, when we do our super mentoring program in companies, helping staff mentor young people in the company, the new recruits, one of the key parts right now is we incorporate an executive development so that they actually specify things they want to practice and learn and get to learn how to do that better. Clearly, they're contributing to the company, whatever the results of the work are. They've saved money, they've worked on it, etc. You learn your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and at the end, every organization should recognize this contribution that people made, and that makes the company feel good. It's part of the giving back to the most important people in your company, your employees, as well as the community. And obviously, if it works right in your public company, investors benefit from it too. And again, going back to that personal side, knowing that someone who is ready to give up medicine because they can't stand the sight of blood, but has learned how public health care is a great area where you can have tremendous impact and not do it, makes you feel good about what you've done. What's the role of the mentee, the intern? Again, you need to make sure that that person understands it. They have to be someone who really wants experience, wants knowledge, wants skills, not just another line on a resume. They're willing to ask questions and they're willing to learn. They're willing to sit down for a few minutes, maybe over a coffee or lunch, and say, how did you feel about what you did? What strengths did you bring to it? What was getting in your way? What were the situational things we could do that might change what you do? How do you think you could use this in future jobs and careers? You have to, therefore, in the beginning, set upon agreed upon goals and figure out what it takes to do it, and then make sure that you're doing it and be held accountable for getting it right and getting it wrong. They're not going to get it right the first time. I can share that with you from experience, but they will get it if you stick with them and you show them that you care. We like to call it carefrontational. I work with Vistage International. It's a word that they use when we have to do our mentoring and coaching. Our CEOs are on companies between $5 million and $500 million. Sometimes we have to be carefrontational to help people stretch. The mentees benefit in many ways, and it's just going through it. It's the academic information. It's very often is most important is work skills, how to plan, manage your time, be accountable, work with teams, improve their communication skills, learn how to structure their time to be more efficient and effective, understand what the difference between a vision and a mission and a strategy and a culture is and how it actually plays out in the company, and why Peter Drucker says culture eats strategy for breakfast, because it's true. That's what does happen if you don't have a good culture. Understand what the corporate value, the brand value is, and appreciate your company's brand value. and therefore they can be ambassadors for you. They become more confident. They also learn really what's true about careers. So somebody who starts, for example, in a McDonald's, even as a janitor, learns about the importance that every part's clean and could get promoted and work. And for many of these franchise companies, so many of the young people who start at a low level are, in a sense, mentored so they can grow and eventually own their own stores and move into corporate. It's really a wonderful ladder when there's mentoring taking place and not just using and abusing. School advisors, as I said, benefit too because they get a greater number of placements they can offer to people, greater diversity of placements. One of the reasons we started with this several years ago, conceptualizing a need, is that I've always been amazed at Presentation Excellence Group. I think we do phenomenal quality work. Our clients are ecstatic with the work we do with them. But the reality is we're a very small company. And yet we take on more interns than a giant company, Fortune 500 companies very often. And I'd say, why do you keep coming back to me? And they'd say, well, two things. You take more interns than they do. And two, people come back happier with what they've gotten from you because you're really involved in what you're doing. So it's giving them more diverse placements that they can offer their students, which allows them to recruit more people. And so the quality goes up. And the extent to which the schools and firms work together, each one can help each other by making recommendations and putting programs together. So that's a good backdrop for understanding what the players do. Now let's talk about launching a program. So again, it really all does fall to whoever you choose as your IPC. And our whole concept of building a manual that puts all these pieces together for them means that they have a playbook and they'll know what to do. But today's focus is just giving you an overview of it. So first is, again, what kind of interns are you trying to attract? Where do you see the growth? So you're looking for new marketing. In the marketing department, it's no longer traditional newspapers, but it's social media, and how does Instagram fit into the picture, etc. So that might be something where interns could play a great role in a marketing department. How does buzz fit into it? How has sales changed? And its relationship to roles. These are the kind of things students could learn by being part of it. And so you have to ask, what departments can we make the greatest contribution? And then, as I said, you have to recruit staff who can benefit from them. They have to have projects and they have to come up with projects. I'm doing some traveling over the summer. I get a minimum of 25 leads a week for people looking for internships, from which I have to do it. And I have, because I'm going to be away part of it, I have to find people who can handle this, take on some projects a little bit on their own while I'm doing some of this traveling so that they'll still get an enormous amount out of it. So it's people who are willing to plan and make sure that they're maximizing their role as a mentor, regardless of whether they have day-to-day or not. You're recruiting the high-quality students. And again, you can get terrific kids at high school, college, and grad levels. There are times that I have high school students who are better than my graduate students because they're committed in a better way. Set parameters for the program, hours, pay, time, things like that. If they are also going to get school credit, you want to make sure that they do some kind of report at the end, putting it together so the school can see how much they've done and what they've learned. You want to evaluate the program. We'll talk about that a lot. I believe you evaluate the program with a baseline in the beginning, a middle, and the end, and you use those pieces of information to help you grow at the end. Our whole focus, if you know anything about any of the products, programs that are offered through the Presentation Excellence Group, is all sustainable programs that can run themselves once you put all the pieces together and you've basically empowered everyone to do what they have to do. And that's really the goal here. So for me at this point, getting any new cycle of insurance is a minimum amount of work because we've done this so often and we know how to do it. How do you design a program? Okay, one, set up a specific measurable program. For many of you, you're familiar with the concept of SMART goals. If not the acronyms in front of you, it's a really good way to ask what are the goals and that they're concrete as you're looking at them. You want to measure them. You want to make sure they're achievable. You want to make sure with the A that they're also accountable, that everyone's going to be held accountable. So a mentor that's not answering questions isn't accountable and needs to be held accountable. Time defined, you only have X number of hours or weeks to do something and then you need to work it. You have to figure out what level of students you're looking for. Again, I do work with the entire spectrum. What are the disciplines you're looking for? And then what you need to do if you're going to make an investment in building a mentoring internship program is codify it so that it can be used by the next group of people over and over again, constantly improving and changing based on how your company changes. Is it domestic, going international, going global? Is it moving into technology in different ways, etc.? Different people are going to do different things. You have to identify the mentee up front, what their coaching issues are. So what is it they need to learn? For most of them, they really have never learned good time management. Some have some project planning, very few do. Most of them have learned how to use PowerPoint in school, so you don't have to teach them PowerPoint, but they don't know anything about how to presentations. Imagine, I've seen this so often, where people have presentations where every single letter on a slide flies in. And they think it looks cute, but have no understanding that that's not how you're going to make decisions, which is really the goal of presentations, is to facilitate decision making. So it's distractive clutter, or we call it destructive clutter, and you don't want that. So you need to go through really what is it they can get out of it, and once you've understood what they can get out of the program, it's a win-win situation, because then you can build a program to meet their needs. I believe if you're going to have mentors helping interns, you should have a second component, what we call the mentor executive development. You're going to have sure that they get something concrete out of it from the company point of view. And when you do, that's how you achieve the high ROI that we're saying you can get. What are the leadership skills they need to know better? Should they know strategy? They want to be more creative. How could they use their people to innovate and use their creativity to do it? If an executive wants to use it as a platform to take an issue to the higher level, how do they know how to develop their own executive presence and be able to move it to the next level? If they're going to be working and taking the interns to work with projects across the company, do they have all the networking skills they need to do it? If not, are you willing to help them do that? So you'll have to make decisions to help them as well. So I believe you set up mentor standards, and that's why just like you recruit students, you recruit the mentors, because you want to make sure they have a definition of what they're supposed to do, some goals they want to achieve, and you want to make sure that they can then learn while they're doing it. Ultimately, they should be able to improve their own productivity because they've been able to delegate to a much greater level. They know how to supervise efficiently and effectively. They can evaluate success at the different personal as opposed to job-related areas, etc. So you really want to set those developmental goals and then set up some benchmarks to see where it's going. The greatest reward I think that we all got in the last super mentoring program, as I said, for 7 years, was in year 3. We had our first set of mentees graduate to become mentors of the new group, and by the end they were about 60-70% of the mentors, because they had reaped so much out of it that they wanted to participate and help other people. That's what it's really all about. As I said, it's everyone wins, and that's really the goal. So it all begins with getting started. You have to make a commitment to do it. You have to decide what your commitment's going to be. Is your commitment going to be time-based? Is it going to be student-based, department-based? Is it going to be location-based, etc.? And we believe that the number one place to start is to really identify who's your IPC, who's your key contact person to do it. I was at a program about a year ago with a Fortune 100 CEO, and we got into a discussion, and I asked him about mentoring, internships, and he says, "Oh yeah, we have internships." And I said, "Do you want me to talk to the person who's the head of your internship program?" This company is in all 6 continents. And he said, he looked at his colleague who was helping him there at this program and said, "I don't think we have one. I think we kind of leave it to every department and ask that person, would they get back to me and work?" And that person continuously avoided talking to us when we asked questions. It's clear they do not have. I have yet to ever meet an intern from that program, from that company. So it's clear they don't do it very well. And if they do it, it's very minimal. So it reflects. You should have some interns with me at the time, and they kind of decided that's not a company they're going to try to work with in the future. That's why I say it's a win-win if you do it right. So mentoring internships, or MIs, as we're going to call them here, they help the IPCs in a real sense, and that's what we do here, to do a really great project. Um, so one of the things that we try to do is give you the tools. So mentoring internship as a consulting service is really in a process walking you through all the things you need, building a manual with you, doing the evaluations, and at the end of the first cycle, you have all the tools capable to self-sustain and do this yourself. We believe that mentors, our goal is eventually to reach 1 million young people a year and have enough companies in there where people will actually get on our LinkedIn for mentoring internships website, the site, and be able to support one another, because most of the issues that we run into are the same, and each one through their own experience can help other people do it. So there's a really important way. So our concept is it can be put on a wiki internally. You can relate people to Facebook with the interns and LinkedIn for the professionals as a place providing emotional and technical support. We believe in the evaluation, which is why if we're going to launch a program with a company that you want to do for the next, let's say, decade, but you run yourself, it's that first time that we have to set up the right benchmarks for evaluating and launching the program, etc. And if needed, we'll be a supervisor. In the case of the super mentoring program that we did with our companies, they actually just had us administer it because it was just more effective if they're in the city, so we were able to do it. So we took charge of it and made it all done, and this way HR didn't need to allocate a specific person to do it. I see some questions coming up, Pat. I will answer your question as I finish because we're almost at the end and I want to take a lot of questions. So for those of you who have questions, this is a great time to start typing them in, and I will discuss the answers to them as we go along. If you build it, here's the real difference. They will come, because interns are desperate to find it. I work with lots of schools, I work with programs, etc. And what you're going to discover is every one of you today on this phone call, of which I'm just proud to say it's one of our webinar concepts, is that we keep a large proportion. We have right now, with one exception, 100% of people who started have paid attention to the entire program. You can all make a difference, and that's really what this is about. That's what the Presentation Excellence Group is all about, helping people make a difference by really making a difference to the people. Again, just a quickie on myself. Psychologist, lawyer, I have expertise in strategy, leadership, culture, blah, blah, blah. You can read it and see it. I've been doing internships over 500. We stopped in 2000. At that time, I was running a company called Brilliant Image, and when I sold it and moved more into the consulting side of the business, we just stopped counting it. But that number would be in probably close to 550 by now, even though it's fewer than we had before. The experience came from actually working in companies, working with recruits. In fact, the second company that came to us for help that we worked with for 7 years, their challenge was that people were coming in and leaving after a year and a half because there were no career paths. And that was the key part where we realized the mentors weren't opening up the student's eyes or the recruit's eyes to where they could go into other places in the company, and that made a big difference. And so I also work with leaders. Vistage, as some of you may know, has 19,000 CEOs, $5 million to $500 million worth of revenues, United States and 16 other countries. And I work with them to help them when they need to do the same thing. Our goal is actually to focus on them to be able to reach our goal of reaching as many people as possible. So my goal today in doing this was to help you realize creating a vibrant program that's self-sustainable, that produces an ROI from a company image point of view, from a company productivity point of view, from a mentoring as a person and executive point of view, and obviously from the student point of view, is easy. It's win-win. Everyone benefits from it. My contact information is here, and if you haven't thought about an issue today that you put in a question, you can feel free to come to me later and ask the question. So Pat asked the question, do I hire interns at the end of the programs? There's two answers to that. When we're working on a project which in some ways core to our business, and it's running, for example, you're in the marketing or in sales department, we pay our interns because we think that's important. They're doing what we call a function, even if they're getting mentoring internships at it, so they may get a slightly lower salary than someone else did, but they're getting something. If we're on a development program, we're pioneering, we're working right now on something that can affect over 50 million Americans, and we're working it out. I'm actually going to finish the business plan. while I'm in China, and then come back and try to launch it. And so some of the interns are doing just basic research. They'll get projects out of it for their schools, and if it leads to a program where we actually get funding to be able to do it, they'll be the first ones who get it. So I don't qualify people, say intern for me to hire. I'm pretty good at that recruiting part. If I like somebody, I hire them right away, and I'll call them an intern, because they're learning, and then they may move into a more senior role, and that's when they stop being an intern. But I'm not doing like this wealth manager that I said, giving them projects to learn and see how they fit to the culture. It's just not the issue for the way we operate. But it's a great one. He succeeds. Um, his company has tripled in size over the years, and it's because he no longer has to fire young people who come in because they didn't fit the culture. It's a very big issue. Culture really does destroy strategy, and you have to understand when you're helping people make financial decisions worth tens of millions of dollars, you need to have people who really can share ideas, be creative, communicate effectively, and be there and do whatever it takes to do it. So that's really it. Another question here, Paul, you're asking, why do I believe it can be done year round? Students are, first of all, students are learning year round now, and not just in school, but at home. They're learning from online programs. I mean, we touch base with almost all of them, but the school semesters is probably a great structure to work with. It's the one we've chosen, so we call it spring, fall, and summer. You want to build it around the school. We try to bring it back to the school. Our whole philosophy is that the teachers in the school are great resources to help the students get answers. The career advisors can help them take certain tests to see what they're better at, whether it's, an inventory of job skills or a disc to find out their leadership capabilities, etc. They can also, will very often send them back and say, I want you to go talk to the marketing department about why e-commerce marketing might be very different than offline marketing, and bring that as a question. And so I love tying it in and using the resources. I'm a little more privileged maybe than many of you because I am in New York City, and we've got so many universities out there and schools out there that people can do it. But I think it's true everywhere because I run into students who come from all over, including Europe, including it doesn't make a difference, Canada, whatever, Mexico, South America, they're all in the same position. They want to learn, and as long as you're able to help them tie into other people that can help them, that's great. So we then do tie it. We just change the hourly expectation to be real. We let them all know finals come first, midterms come first. Again, that's part of our priorities, our value system. Doing well in school is the most important thing, and this is just a way for them to have that experience. So when they want to apply for a job, they can do it. The question he was asked, Dan, do I help them get jobs? The answer is absolutely. We help them get jobs. We'll review the resume with them. These things I personally will do. I'll sometimes even go through some of the issues to handle in an interview because that's part of what I'm about as a person and what presentations of excellence about, making heroes out of people. If we can get them great jobs, it's fine. And I have to share with you, many of you may feel it's intimidating, but it really isn't. It's some of the most basic things you do could be making a difference. I'll give you an example. We had a young man who had a problem. I don't even remember exactly why, but as a result, he thought this was his last semester, but he had one more class that he had to take. So he went back to University of Virginia to take that last class, and he was looking for a part-time job while he was going to school, full-time job, actually. And he went through the interview, and as he tells the story, it wasn't a great interview. And it was going okay, but it wasn't one of those where you know this is going to go great. And they're getting pretty close to the end, and the guy says, so you did database work, I understand presentation excellence. You know, what did you use? And he says, I used FileMaker. And the guy's eyes open up and said, you're kidding me, you know FileMaker? Wow. And he got the job. and he's now a full-time employee there. It's many years ago, etc. So it's kind of capabilities. So we do whatever it takes to help our interns because that makes us feel better as people, and we know we're giving back to the community. And for all those companies who claim they are, this is a great way to do it. And so we recommend very highly if you